Good morning, everyone, and welcome to University Unitarian Church in Seattle, Washington. It's Sunday, December the 5th, and it's good to greet you all this morning, those who are here with us in the chapel, and those who are watching on the live stream audience. Just a reminder that as we are in the building, we remain masked, and we invite you all to join us for coffee and conversation after the service in the Nathan Johnson Hall, which is the room right before you as you leave the chapel. If you're new to us and curious about this congregation and Unitarian Universalism, we have an information session every Sunday after each service downstairs in the Dix room. It's an opportunity for you to ask some questions and to meet some of our folks and to learn a little bit more about us. This coming week on Wednesday night, we'll have our annual service of solace, which has become really a traditional part of our holiday services. This is a quieter, a more meditative service with candlelighting and music and some reflection, and an opportunity to acknowledge those of us who are having maybe a little more struggle this year due to loss or sickness. To make you feel recognized and seen. And we invite you to bring anyone of your friends or family members for whom you think that would be helpful. We'd love to have them with us Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. Let us begin the service this morning with our prelude. Let us enter into the fellowship this morning with heart and mind and spirit. May our hearts be opened with sensitivity to the joys and sorrows, the hopes and burdens of those who sit beside us. May our minds be enlarged to understand the many languages we speak as we try to give voice to the wisdom that lies within each of us. And may our spirits be attuned to the deepest chords of reality as we seek to center ourselves in communion with the mystery of being. As we open ourselves in this hour of worship, may our souls find peace, and may the blessings of love be present with us in our togetherness. I invite you to stand or remain seated as you wish as we listen to our doxology and our opening hymn.
Hi everyone. I'm going to be talking about Teen Feed and why it is important for you to donate this year. I've volunteered with Teen Feed just a couple times in person because of COVID, but I've had a really fun experience getting to meet new people and make food. It's nice to know that kids my age are getting the help that they need. And over the past year, while I couldn't have gone in person, I've made cookies for Teen Feed with my family every month. And it was always nice to spend time with my family while also helping people at the same time. Teen Feed makes a huge impact and offers over 20,000 meals to youth every single year, and every night it feeds about 50 to 80 kids. This program is really important, and I hope that they can get all the donations that they need this year.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Walker. This is my daughter Avery, and we're really happy to be able to talk about Teen Feed today. So Teen Feed is independent of government funding, and it exists to fill the cracks of the existing system, listening to youth every day about what they need to achieve health and stability. They feed youth, yes, but their larger mission is to connect youth to resources, compassion, and other sources of support that lead youth into employment and fulfilling futures. When city facilities closed during COVID, Teen Feed remained a resource teens could count on. It is the only program focused on teens in the U District, and it's low barrier. Youth don't need to register, show ID, or meet any other eligibility requirements to be supported and fed. Teen Feed's strategic plan relies on volunteerism for food preparation with the purpose of building understanding amongst individuals with different housing statuses. As mentioned by Avery, we only had the chance to directly serve youth once, but we felt as welcomed by the youth as I hope they felt by us. As a mom, I really appreciate organizations that spend the extra time to coordinate volunteers so my kids have an opportunity to participate in something that expands their understanding of the world and its realities. It's provided an opportunity for us to fill up our kitchen with cookie sheets, sometimes roping in whatever other friends happen to be around, and work around a chopping block at the Lutheran Church kitchen, mixing, warming, and assembling food with other UUC members. It's been a reminder of the importance of simply gathering as we work together, building understanding and relationship in our UUC and broader community. When it comes to donating, supporting an organization like Teen Feed is an impact multiplier because it engages an entire community in common purpose. I hope you'll consider supporting this great organization in your holiday giving this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah and Avery. UUC has been participating in Teen Feed for over 10 years now. In the last several winters, we've also hosted a warm clothing drive to support the youth who are sleeping outside during these cold winter nights. And so then this coming Sunday, you're invited to bring hats and gloves and socks. More information is online about what all is being received, but you're invited to bring those to church next Sunday, where the donations will be collected and shared with Teen Feed. As the ushers come forward with the offering baskets, would you please join me in saying the words here on the screen? This church is a community of ourselves. Its energy and resources are our energy and resources. Its wealth is what we share. When we contribute to the life of this community, we affirm our lives within it.
I invite you now to join me in a spirit of prayer and meditation as we take a moment to quiet and center ourselves, seeking that which renews us as persons and as a people. Source of all seasons and senses, grant us a sense of timing and the willingness to submit gracefully and rejoice quietly in the turn of the seasons. In this season of short days and long nights, of gray and wet and cold, May we learn the lessons of waiting, of the damp joining the mystery of hunkered down seeds growing in their sleep, watched over by grandparent trees, resting from autumn's staggering energy, and the silent whirling earth circling to race back home to the sun. May we be granted a sense of waiting. In this season of short days and long nights, of gray and wet and cold, may we learn the lessons of endings, children growing, friends leaving, work concluding, stages finishing, grieving over, grudges over, blaming over, excuses over. May we be granted a sense of endings. In this season of short days and long nights, of gray and wet and cold, may we learn the lessons of beginnings, that such waitings and endings may become a starting place, a planting of seeds which bring to birth what is ready to be born, something right and just and different, a new song, a deeper relationship, a fuller love in the fullness of time. May we be granted a sense of waiting and ending and beginning, a sense of timing. To these imperfect words, we add the silent intentions of our hearts. So may it be. Amen.
invite you to just remain seated to receive this next hymn, hymn number 55, Dark of Winter. It's hard to imagine now what the sky might have looked like long before the invention of electricity, away from cities and in the open expanse of the desert. Hard to imagine what the night might have revealed and felt like to the three magi of Christmas story fame. In contrast to these ancient travelers, as modern humans, it's easy to go full weeks without taking in the stars, either because of light pollution that threatens to banish the experience of darkness entirely in much of this world, or for merely forgetting to pause and turn one's gaze upwards. In a relatively short amount of time, we've traveled a far distance from the rest of human history, in which the night sky was pivotal in terms of navigation, tracking time, and making meaning. I imagine the night must have been totally enveloping in the ancient world. Dark velvet covered with distant constellations that would have been well known to the Magi. Earliest translations of the Gospel of Matthew, the only gospel they appear in, name them as astronomers rather than kings. And out of this dark night, an unusual light appeared. A star so bright it twinkled with prophecy, compelling these ancestral astronomers to leave their homeland in the east and cross the desert in search of the meaning behind this unexplainable burst of light. As the calendar year comes to a close, and this hemisphere gets more and more shrouded in the dark of winter, we enter once more into the season of celebrating the existence and the re-emergence of the light. Diwali, the festival of light for Hindus, Jains, Sikhs, and some Buddhists, was celebrated by people around the earth last month with lamps decorating every corner of the home. Tonight, Jewish families will light a candle in the menorah marking the 7th night of the miracle of Hanukkah. In a few short weeks, those who celebrate the winter solstice will honor the longest night around fires and hearths that recall earth-based rituals that are far older than Christianity. And then, of course, Christmas will come. Christmas will come glitzed out with twinkle lights, candles, and familiar stories and songs. It seems that humans have an innate need, cross-culturally, to find ways to brighten the long nights and gather together despite the understandable desire for many of us to enter into a hibernation state. In our cultural context, this is a season that is more known for its hectic schedules, extra expectations, and consumerism than it is for its contemplation. But I wonder what the invitation is within the darkness and the quiet that accompanies it. What lies within the darkness of the womb that waits to be born in this season? And what do we possibly lose by focusing so much on the returning of the light that we avoid entering into the uncertainty of the night sky, and the wisdom therein? As with the whole of the Christmas story, it's hard to say what has historic roots and what is beautiful myth. In terms of the star, modern astronomers have gone to some amazing lengths to try to ascertain what the Star of Bethlehem could have been. Maybe it was a conjunction, a supernova, or a comet, if it did indeed exist. Then the question has never been answered, but if you happen to find yourself on Wikipedia, there's a fascinating page, and it just boggles the mind. The astronomers today can make these projections 2,000 years into the past based on what they can read now in the stars. It's really, that in itself is a thing of wonder. Likely, the star, though, like so much of the Christmas story, was poetic, or should I say prophetic, license. The star connected the birth of Jesus to prophecies in the Hebrew Bible and with the contemporary cultural beliefs that linked happenings in the starry skies with important events and births here on earth. The Magi themselves were possibly artistic creations that tied Jesus' birth to nations beyond Israel. These were men who are said to have traveled from afar to worship the child as one would a king. And this lent power to what was essentially the birth of a baby to a poor, young, and unwed mother. Much has been imagined about the Magi, their ages, 20, 40, and 60, their nationalities, and even that there were a total of 3 of them. It's not mentioned. Much has been depicted of them in the little nativity scenes on coffee tables and in Christian art over the centuries, but little is actually written about these wise ones that crossed the desert by night, not knowing exactly where they would end up. Their story is the story of spiritual seeking. Those who travel great distances of land and heart, the seekers in search of what is more beautiful and true. Dedicated pilgrims seeking the holy that is at the heart of life, not knowing exactly what will be found or what will be encountered along the way, but somehow trusting in the possibility that lies within the journey itself and the questions that guide it. Liberal religion has often been a proud home to spiritual seekers, those who are not satisfied to merely receive their religious answers preordained from clergy, doctrine, or orthodoxy. Embedded at the center of our Unitarian Universalist faith is the belief in the religious worthiness of being a seeker. Our 4th principle is the affirmation of the free and responsible search for truth and meaning in our congregations, and that we support one another in our individual searches. Now, there are many ways to be a spiritual seeker. One can amass a huge library of books from other thinkers to evolve and inform one's own mind. One can travel the world, seeking truth through experience and encounter within the vast diversity of cultures in the earth herself. One can open their awareness to their everyday existence, seeking the holy in every face they encounter, in every sunrise and sunset, seeking a closeness to God and experiencing each day as a blessing that is something to teach. If we took time on this morning or whenever to ask each other and to listen carefully, how do you search for truth and meaning, and why? I imagine we would be awash in ways that people seek out meaning in what is often a complicated and chaotic existence. I have been pondering these questions a lot lately. Having served this congregation for 5 years, it is with great gratitude that I am preparing for my first ever sabbatical in ministry. In this coming year, I will be on pause from my work here at UUC in order to pursue some of these deeper questions around truth and meaning, these questions that can be challenging to sit with in the day-to-day. Am I right? But this doesn't mean that our shared work of social justice and pastoral care will be on pause, because it is exactly that. It is shared. And there are many lay leaders and fellow staff members who will be helping carry responsibilities so that I can follow this seeker's path for a period of time. And for that, I am deeply grateful. On my sabbatical, I will be asking, what gives my days meaning when I am not actively giving of myself? What renews me and what connects me to what I understand as God? And I hope these months away will also provide breathing room for some of the rich, complicated questions that have arisen over these past 5 years. Questions about sustaining and sharing the ministry of justice making and racial justice as spiritual practice, and holding the beauty and the weight of companioning people through life's peaks and valleys. As I prepare to enter into this sabbatical time, starting at the beginning of February, all I can say is thank you. Thank you for supporting the ministry in this way, so that John and I can follow the questions that our hearts long to explore. And thank you for being there when I return in June, for I am already excited to share with you the stories of my 4 months away. It takes dedication to be a spiritual seeker, and to not only follow the questions, but to also discern even what you are asking and why. And there's almost a restlessness that underlies the search. For the dedicated seeker, the ground is usually not stable for too long. It is hard to feel settled when consistently upending what one thought to be true in search of what lies deeper still. I know of some people who live this spiritual search as daily practice, but I find that for most of us, including myself, seeking and searching comes as seasons of our lives. Usually these seasons are times of great change and transition, or deep pain, and sometimes both. Times when, in the words of Tony Robbins, the pain of staying the same is greater than the pain of change. It seems that some of the seasons of seeking are near universal along the lifespan if one is fortunate enough to live a long life and has the capacity, has the resources and energy to engage change beyond just surviving it. One example that we have the privilege of seeing here in this congregation is to witness the process of young people becoming, of youth becoming adults, and as these young people share with us how they're discerning who they are and what they believe as distinct from their families, and just sharing with us their search for where they most belong. And then there's the famous midlife crisis, where many people reevaluate their choices and experience shifts in identity as they shed beliefs or expectations that no longer serve and seek new ways of being. And of course, there are the many changes that arrive outside of any timelines and can implode what was, leaving people to search for meaning in the rubble. And sometimes these implosions are really hard, and sometimes they're good, sometimes they're new babies, sometimes they're new relationships, but they're a change no matter what. And change is the only constant. As much as love is infinite in this beautiful world, so is its faithful companion loss. The journey of life can feel riddled with hard landscapes and difficult questions to travel with. In the biblical stories, people are constantly traversing the desert, including the story of our gift-bearing, spiritual-seeking, star-chasing magi. And this is not a coincidence. There is a lot of arid land in the birthplaces of Judaism and Christianity. I think it would have been a very different religion had it emerged elsewhere in other landscapes and ways. And so contending with the harsh, dry landscape was not just metaphorically true, but it was daily lived practice. There's a thing about the desert, however. It isn't a place that one can be forever. It doesn't hold the sustenance needed for life, and so when people are in the desert in the Bible, they are often transitioning between places. People wandering the desert have left the familiarity of what was and are not yet sure of where they are going or what will be. And often it is in these moments, in these in-between moments, it is exactly where people encounter the divine and the holy, within the bareness and the meanness of life, without the comforts of the known to ease them or distract them. And I wonder, what deserts have you crossed in your own life? And I wonder, once you are on the other side, what did you discover during that time? And then there's the night through which the Magi traveled. To travel in the dark also is to not know with certainty exactly where one is going. Both the experience and the metaphor of darkness comes with a lot of baggage in our culture. Our culture values sunny optimism and quick fixes. And so the uncertainty and the vulnerability inherent in the darkness is something we are generally taught to fear. And this is wrapped up also in the history of racism, which has arbitrarily valued lightness over darkness. So much of our culture is delivered in these false binaries and opposites, rather than seeing the hidden wholeness that is at the heart of all of life. The gifts of traveling in the dark, of opening to rather than avoiding what is hard or fearful and the unknown, these should not be underestimated, particularly as spiritual seekers. To travel in the dark might just take you on a journey toward a new beginning, towards a more integrated life than the one you have known in the daylight hours. And so I leave you with just one gift of traveling at night. And this is one that was taught to me by the Celtic Christian theologian and poet, John Philip Newell, who I will be studying with as part of my sabbatical. He shares that the psychologist Carl Jung speaks of moon-like consciousness, a way of seeing in which we more readily perceive oneness than differentiation. As you might know, under the moonlight, life's edges are not so sharply defined. The boundaries are less distinct, almost dreamlike. In contrast, within the light of day, the separation between everything is more stark. The parts are more easily distinguished from the whole and can be seen and categorized and analyzed with the mind. John Philip Newell writes, "The reality is that we need both, moonlight consciousness and sunlight consciousness, even if the latter has a way of highlighting the crude nature of our separations. Without moonlight consciousness, without remembering that our human journey began as one, and that the birth of the earth and its unfolding life are one, we will splinter further and further into fragmented parts in which we dangerously forget the whole. Sunlight consciousness alone, with its primary focus on differentiation, whether that is between individuals or nations or species, has proved to be inadequate. It is not enough. But today, a new ancient way of seeing is being born, a moon-like consciousness, in which we are remembering also our oneness. In this season of celebrating the light, may we also seek the wisdom that the darkness holds. In this season of gathering around the familiar, may we also remember the potency of leaving the known. And in the deserts of our lives, may we seek and find what we know as holy and follow that shining truth all the way home. Blessings on you this morning and on this day. Amen. Would you please rise now in body or in spirit for our closing hymn, hymn number 126, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing.
Streams of
I have recently come to the realization that hymns are some of my favorite music. And it's funny that it took me this long, considering how long I've been in church. But that one is just so beautiful. All the music this morning. Thank you. So I close with a reading that I often share on Christmas Eve, but I thought we could start with it since we are at the beginning of this month, which can be so wild. So I close with these words from Michael Podesta, entitled Desert. If, as Herod, we fill our lives with things and again with things, if we consider ourselves so unimportant that we must fill every moment of our lives with action, when will we have the time to make the long, slow journey across the desert as did the Magi, or sit and watch the stars as did the shepherds, or brood over the coming of the child as did Mary? For each one of us, there is a desert to travel, a star to discover, and a being within ourselves to bring to life.
Amen.